Greetings. Welcome. Welcome back to another episode of Pardon the Interjection. I'm your host, Supreme L. Thank you for joining me. It's been a good little minute. Had to take care of a few things, but yet we're back. Today's show, we got a very, very special guest that's going to be coming on. We're going to be going and do a little bit different chat today. We're going to go into some metaphysical aspects of living in that nature, and shortly I will be getting our special guest on real shortly. And the guest we having coming on is going to be one of the renowned scholars of our time, who really goes in deep with the metaphysic aspect of things. And we're going to get him on the line here real shortly.
Yes, sir.
Greetings, family. We have on the line the distinguished gentleman, good brother. Great honors we give to brother Dr. Phil Valentine L. Greetings, brother. How you doing?
I'm blessed, brother. BLISSED, and thank you for the kind invitation.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us on Pardon the Interjection. It's been a good minute since I did a show, and it's an honor to have you, one of the foremost on metaphysics on this good show.
Give thanks. Appreciate the time.
I want to give a little bit of news that I heard today, and I want to send a good going journey for our brother Kobe Bryant, who lost his life on this side of the earth plane today.
Indeed. We are extending our warmest and most sincere condolences to his family, and just to the legacy that this brother, young brother, from the time he was like 17 years of age, that he has been thrilling the audiences and bringing that type of passion and greatness to the sport that he actually represented. He and Michael seem to mirror one another from two different dimensions, and every move, you could actually see the moves that they each played, and they looked like they were mirrors of one another.
Right.
Of course, Michael being the eldest, but you could look at the fact that Kobe, starting at his age and being who he was, all of the bad things that they put out about him, and what the women were trying to do to, tell him that, trying to use him to get money from the brother, because I know that was something that they had to drop. But I'll tell you this, it's a loss. It's a loss to a great ambassador of the game. All the things that the brother did. I think he had a movie company that he had opened up just recently.
Right. I heard about that.
Yeah, and that would have been something that might have been an outlet for all of us as brothers and sisters who wanted to take on that particular field of endeavor. He would have been one of the people that I knew would have extended his resources, his time, and his celebrity too. But I think that metaphysically, that this had to have been something that is tantamount to some form of sacrifice.
Right.
You're going to start seeing the metaphysicians and the numerologists and the astrologists are all going to come now, and they're going to speak to what was in conjunction, what was the rising, what was falling, what had the adverse aspects, and so forth. And whatever this was, it seems to be a gateway. They use blood sacrifices like this to open up doors so that they can maintain control, keep whatever it is that they need as far as blood sacrifices are concerned.
Right.
And so beyond all about that, I know everybody's going to come up with their own conjectures about what happened, but we just know that we're now going to feel that loss. We're going to mourn for just what it is his family is going through at this time. I'm hoping that everybody just try to bum rush his wife and his children and so forth. Leave him alone. Let them do what they have to do to help his journey to the other side. Just leave him alone, leave the family alone, and let's just bask in what it is this brother left us.
Right. And it is so ironic that he was 41. And we know that the significance of the 4 and the 1 is like you say, numerology, and to get in on that tidbit of blood sacrifice. There's so much dealing with the blood. What is significant about our people and our blood? Because it's a lot of blood sacrificing dealing with our people.
Well, the blood is liquid crystal. I don't look at it as just a organic material, liquefied carbon, so to speak.
Right.
It's a crystal form. And in fact, some of the most profound and the purest crystals are made, in the high altitudes above our Earth.
Yes.
And what happens is that crystals are transporters of communicators. They're communicators. And when your cells and your DNA are in the liquid crystal carries the flow program of what we call the word. And the word itself is speaking to the blood, and the blood crystal is what's actually maintaining the program of the DNA and so forth. Most people are now becoming more and more, I guess, knowledgeable and more aware and more conscious of what the blood is, based upon the wickedness that the so-called deep state and their so-called satanic rituals and the creating or using dark alchemy to whip up a specific type of what I call an infrastructural brew, a kind of drug that the body creates in order to allow it to go through the death passage. In other words, when you look at, say, the lion that goes after the gazelle,
Right.
after the gazelle has been caught, if you notice, the gazelle is not dead. It tends to go into this place of almost serenity.
Right.
Well, that's what the Creator does during the time of our death. This death cycle, when we go into a life cycle, it's the opposite. It's almost like, the baby is fighting to get that first breath.
Yeah, right.
And then with the last breath, it seems like a giving up, a kind of a surrender. But the body secretes a particular kind of material to make sure that passing, the pain is no longer there. It's a surrendering, and they don't feel anything anymore.
Right.
And so that's what they're doing to the young children today. They're tincturing the blood. They're using dark alchemy, what I call the so-called dark magic, not black magic, but dark magic, and the magic that deals with service to self. And what they do is, by creating certain emotional energies in that alchemic process, they cause the pituitary and the pineal and the adrenals to come together to create this adrenochrome, which then becomes, once someone takes it out of the blood and drinking the blood that's been achromatized, they then go through this high. But what it does is it taxes the life force to the point where it begins to drain the person's life force, who becomes addicted to it. That's why you can see people like Johnny Depp and some of these younger people looking like they're 60 years of age when they're only 40.
Right.
If they don't have their adrenochrome.
Right.
You see, so the blood is very important because as a liquid crystal, it picks up information, but the information it picks up is actually transdimensional. It can pick up that from the sun and moon energies, as well as the dome energies. It's there to actually give us a condensed version of information as light.
Right. Okay. Now, pardon me. With that being said, I want to swing into the afterlife. A lot of people want to I guess I want to use a lesser word, believe in their afterlife. Is there something other than just here in the now? Is there an afterlife? Can you speak on that?
Well, we don't, in our school, we don't deal with the afterlife. We deal with the after death. And everybody says there's an afterlife, but life essentially does not have anything after it. In other words, there's no afterlife, because what we're living is a temporal condition. It's a conditioning of space-time.
Right.
It is not life itself. Life is the flow that we engender within the avatar that we are. So there's no afterlife because there's only just life.
Right.
The temporality of it, or the temporal part of it, which is the temporary visitation into specific densities. In this particular case, third density,
Right.
which is what consolidates around a particular programming, and we are compressed together around what we call our aura, is actually our form holding field. It's called the morphogenetic field, and we are compressed together in this gossamer field that keeps us from flying apart atomically.
Right.
In other words, most people say, well, if you condense us down, we're nothing more than first of all, we're liquid. Then if you take the liquid and you break it down, you can see we're nothing but molecules. But if you break down the molecules, you see we're nothing more than atoms. And from those atoms, you see that what is atoms? Nothing more than light.
Right.
So we're nothing but light bodies at our essential level. So, but in order for that light to be consolidated so that you have this presence of a physical body, the aura becomes the containment that causes a stasis of those atoms to operate within a closed circuit.
Right.
And so we're operating in a closed circuit as humans. We have an avatar that our inner light is actually occupying, and that inner light is conscious.
Right.
And it's having, like I say, you're a physical body having a spiritual experience, no, you're a spirit having a physical experience.
Right. Correct.
And you see, so now that consolidation in the physical body now becomes the vehicle that seeks out experience. But then that blood and all of what we are consolidated as becomes a feedback mechanism for a higher consciousness, for a higher awareness. And that's what we are. We're nothing more than the extensions of that one thing seeking out itself through the experience of the many.
Right. Right. So let me ask you this, Doc. I think it's a two-part question, I guess, but let me start with this first one. What is the meaning of metaphysics, and what does this term mean? There never was a time when man was not.
You've done your homework, brother. That's good.
I'm trying, young man.
No, brother. To try is to fail.
Yeah, there you go. We doing
you're
over
doing
here.
it. You're doing it. Well, the first question, which speaks to, remind me of the first question again, because you already got me hooking up on the second question.
Yes, what is metaphysics? The meaning
right.
of metaphysics, pardon.
But if you break it down in the English language, you got to look at the different ways that words come together,
Right.
what letters mean, and so forth. Meta means beyond in the Greek. It means something that's outside of. Physics is that which can be accessed by our senses. Okay, so anything, metaphysics is that the study of cause rather than a visceral description of effects.
Right.
So when you're looking at, say, something that you has veneers, because all of our senses are based upon onness, O-N. When you look at on is no. So when you're looking at no and on, you're looking at these words, you're looking at something that says, okay, my senses are only touching surfaces at this point. The problem is that we don't have a language for causal planes that's beyond the surfaces. And what our school does at our university is we show you that there is a language that supersedes what you see and what you have described. We go beyond the description and we seek out the definition. There's a difference between a description and a definition.
Right.
The description just gives you the surface. The definition gives you the essence.
Right.
Okay, so what we're dealing with in metaphysics is to re-language reality. There's a gentleman, forgot his name. His name is David Wynn Miller. David Wynn Miller did a very good work at showing you how grammar is used to keep you enslaved. And that's what we do at our university, and we've been doing for the last nearly 35 years, is to teach people that the language is what keeps you trapped.
Right.
Now, what he's done is he's gone even further into breaking down how the European has used language to distort reality,
Right.
and to keep those who don't understand how they can, say, for instance, write a contract. And the contract could be written in everything that you think the contract says, but it's written in doublespeak.
Right.
It's written in such a way that those who could, you take those persons to court for not performing, and the judge and everybody who's on the side of the person who put up the contract will say, well, you signed your name to this, and this is what it actually meant,
Right.
and you've lost.
Right.
Also, if you've noticed that anytime you see your name in all capital letters, for example, and I'm dealing with this again is metaphysics, because when you're speaking about language and you're speaking about the way that the court system works, it works on the basis of metaphysical thinking. Not just metaphysical practicality, you see it, but metaphysical thinking. So when you see a long sentence all in capital letters, for example, a lot of people, like when they want to shout at you, they write in all capital letters, they type in all capital letters.
Right.
Well, what they're doing is they're speaking to you in what is known as dog Latin.
Okay.
Dog Latin is all capital letters, and the dog Latin is a marquee, Roman marquee lettering. It has nothing to do with the English language. But they make you put your name in that all capital letters.
Right.
And if each of those capitalized words, do not have a hyphen in between them, then that is not the language you're supposed to be speaking. But that's not the language that is meant to be in a contract or anywhere that has your upper and lower case name.
Right. Right. And
So
yeah. some would refer to that as capitis diminutia maxima.
Maximum, right. So what
Okay.
you're looking at is essentially the way that they trick you into believing that the words that your name in all capital letters, metaphysically, is the same as your name in upper and lower case.
Right. Right.
Okay? Which means it's not the same. And there is a law that states that a contract may not be written in two different languages.
Right.
So dog Latin is another language. So when they put your name, for instance, you go and you look at your driver's license, you see your name in all capital letters, but you see your last name first,
Right.
and then your first name, then your middle.
Right.
That's them playing that Roman dog Latin game on it. And when you look at the word dog Latin in Black's Law's dictionary, it is the language of idiots. Okay, see, so that's what they think of you. So metaphysics is what we teach, to teach you to understand that the language that you're speaking has a variable that is behind the actual written script. And everything that you think you know as this, a lamp, computer, desk, kitchen, all of the things you're looking around your house, all of these are not what they seem to be based upon the language you've been taught since you were in grammar school.
Right.
So when you're in grammar school, look at what they say now. You're in grammar school, and the last thing they teach you is proper grammar.
Right.
They indoctrinate you into that. So what they do is they turn you into imbeciles so that they can control you in the courts, in the systems that they've put down to maintain the ceiling of your understanding. What we've been doing is breaking through that ceiling for the last 35, 40 years.
Right.
Now, when you said there was never a time that man was not, it means that what we are as conscious entities, no matter what forms we take as bodies, we are always been. Every time we speak about a humanity, no matter what plane of existence it operates on, it is still man. The highest form of intelligence exists throughout eternity, and when the Creator folded onto itself, and this is what we say, there was no such thing as creation. Because how could the creation is when you look at the word create, you get a picture of something coming out of something. In other words, you think about a mother giving birth and a baby coming from her body.
Right.
But when the Creator, which is all and all, it cannot create anything outside of itself. So there's no such thing as creation. There is what is called negation, and that's what the ancient Capita or the Egyptians always saw creation as. Creation was a form of negation, which means that the Creator collapsed upon itself to know itself. It could not go outside of itself. The way it went outside of itself is by collapsing in on itself. And that's when that so-called 10%, or when the dimensions of itself began to express itself. Now, most people are saying, well, I don't even know what you're talking about, Dr. B, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying this, that when we're talking about creation itself, the Creator itself being all and all and all, and our limited brains inside of our small skulls cannot encompass the magnitude of what it is that we're trying to condense into meaning when we talk the word and when we say the word God. We have no clue. We only have given it limited names: Jesus, Allah, Yehovah, and all these names limit what it is that we're speaking about. There are greater, higher beings, but even they come up under that thing that we're trying to describe. So when you're talking about God, you're limiting that name to what your perception is of God, because that's not God. Allah is not God. It's what you think God is. You can come up with the highest form of the most beautiful prose to describe what you think would be the beatitude of the Creator, but you would never come close to actually defining it. All you can do is live and become conscious within consciousness of it. So in my speaking of that, and I know I'm rambling, but I need to get my point across as clearly as possible when it comes to speaking on this. What you have to understand is that when you speak of Creator, it is a collapsing upon the self, and it is a folding over. And what we say in the higher metaphysics is man is the greater part of God. Why is that? Because the Creator itself we are the extensions of the Creator. We are the avatars of the Creator's intelligence. And what we are doing in the limited form that we have is knowing the Creator in its limitations, so that the Creator can know itself from its limitation. You cannot know itself from all knowing. You cannot know yourself from all knowing. You cannot know yourself from all being. There has to be some form of limitation created, so that the limitation can then study the limitless.
Right. And I hear that you say the Creator itself, and I don't hear you say he or she. Can you get a little bit into that?
Very good. You see, you hit it right on the head. You make a great student at our school. There is no he or she in it. The he or she is representative of what is intrinsic to the thing that we're studying. There is masculine and feminine, and the only way you see that is when it condenses itself into the realm of duality. The ones in the realm of duality can only know the unity of the one when it becomes compatible with the duality. So when the feminine is in compatibility with the masculine, then both sides in their compatibility are representing unity. But you can't take that and say, okay, here's a man who thinks he's a woman, or somebody's born as a hermaphrodite, and say that's the new man. No, it's not. It's nonsense. Because unity cannot live in duality and live itself. In other words, if you look at the past records of hermaphrodites, they've always been grotesque. They are actually mutants. Okay, there's some form of distortion in the genetics. It is never, ever, ever a representation like most people say, well, that just shows that there's a unity in both of us. No, there's a distortion in that unity where it shows that one set of plumbing representing the aspect of the Creator in an attenuated vibration, where it's what we call the third dimension. Third dimension is a compression. Okay, we are under a compressed zone of reality and of existence. In other words, if I was to drive a car going 60 to 70 miles an hour, open the window and put my hands out, we would feel the membrane under which we live. The faster we go, the greater the density that we feel. And some of the measurements had us actually compressed under about 16,000 pounds per square inch.
Right.
of atmospheric energy. So if that's the case, then we are actually in a form of water. So what I was saying, what we teach is that air is actually a form of qualified water, just like water is a form of qualified air.
Right, which takes you back to H2O, hydrogen times 2
Hydrogen,
oxygen.
Oxygen, exactly. And what the fish can do in water, we can't. But what we can do in the air and on land, the fish
The
can't.
fish can.
Right. So each one of them are living in a compressed aspect of water. Even the land is actually a form of water itself, hydrogen that has been qualified into what we see as the density of land. And then in the ancients spoke about the fact that what we were living in as entities, etheric entities, we were actually living in a crystallized matrix. And what has happened during the densities that man began to fall into the densities and began to condense these elements, fire, air, water, and earth. What happened is, if you were to dig inside of the earth down to an appreciable level, it would be all crystal. I don't know if you've ever seen the crystal caverns.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
some of us have these little crystals on our there, what we call the hexagonal quartz crystal.
Yes, I have.
And we have little ones on our desk and so forth. They have them that's the size of 3- and 4-story buildings.
Yes, my brother took one to the Laverne Caverns,
Right.
and he's seen plenty.
That's what the earth looked like before. Entities lived within the energy that crystals actually have. And we were entities that lived just outside the periphery. Now, I know people are saying, well, he's out of his mind. You know, this Negro is talking all kind of nonsense and so forth. Well, yeah, it sounds nonsense to people who have been cloistered in ignorance for a very long time, like I was.
Right.
And some of us refuse to expand our knowledge because biblical teachings tell us that our Creator is different from us and that we must be worthy of Him telling us that we are bad, we'll be spanked, you got to go to church, and if you don't come to church, I'm going to be mad at you.
Right.
If you don't do this, it's a lot of nonsense. It's fairy tales for children, for adults. Going to school and listening to the Bible the way the preacher teaches it, instead of the way a scientist would teach it to you. Reading the Bible and teaching it from that perspective puts us into this belief matrix rather than an investigative and a more critical, analytical state of mind.
Right. And you hit on something earlier that I did want to question. You said hermaphrodites. On the wall that Osiris is pictured with hips, and there is actual stories of him being a hermaphrodite. Can you speak on that?
Well, they took Osiris at the time. You have to look at Osiris at the time when they were dealing with it as Akhenaten. Akhenaten's model was one of a man suffering from a specific type of disease, agromegaly, I believe it's called.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it has a very long, most of them suffering from that, a very long face, and had a very body that looked feminine.
Right.
Yeah, he was suffering, Akhenaten was suffering from acromegaly.
Okay.
And most people don't look at it that way. They just look at the history and they tell us all the good things about Akhenaten. But Akhenaten was a tyrant, actually. Most people don't, they see him, he's great. Why is Akhenaten built up by the Christians? Because he's the one who wanted to destroy the pantheonic rulership of Kemet at the time.
Okay.
Now, and I'm not saying that it didn't become corrupt,
Right.
just like most of governments become corrupt after 10,000 years. But what has happened is he wanted to destroy all of the different temples. Matter of fact, he destroyed the temples of Amun-Ra and went out onto and had a kind of ritual burning and destruction of all of Amun-Ra's paraphernalia in the public arena. And he did that because essentially that was one of like the Senate. In other words, these different temples was like different parts of the governmental structure that kept the pharaoh or the Nasu in balance. So when he was destroying these temples, he was destroying the political system.
Right.
Okay, because Kemet was a theocracy. So what he did was destroyed the political system that was in place, and he wanted to put in this system that he had called the Aten. And what he began doing is bringing in, he wanted to have this kind of, the same kind of policy that the Democrats want. They want all the immigrants just open the borders and start coming in. And so what he did was he began going with the priests in Syria and different parts of the world and having them come to Kemet so that they can have this one world religion under this Atenism. And so what that did was break down the political system at the time. Now, this is where the story, where the so-called Jews who picked up on it and twisted the story around. What happened at the time was Akhenaten was getting a lot of protests in ancient Kem at the time. During the time when he wanted to push this Atenism, because he passed a law that we would destroy all statues of Amun-Ra, or anything having to do with the temples, Ast or Isis, breaking down Hathor or Heteru, all the different temples that dealt with the feminine and masculine principles of God had to be going down. He became the first divine family. And he had pictures of himself with the Aten and all these different rays shining down on his family. And those are the pictures you had to have in your room. You couldn't have any more pictures in your house of Amun-Ra, of any of the other gods. And so now when the people protested, he said, you know what, the hell with this. I'm moving out. So he left Mempatah. Mempatah was Memphis, which became Memphis, which was the capital city. He left and created a whole city for him and his followers called Amana.
Wow.
Okay, and across the Nile on the other side of the river, a place called Malawi was the place where the priests that served his temple of Aten would be. Now, the priests of Malawi became the Levites in the Bible. All right? Now, as soon as he moved out and said to hell with Kemet, everybody started invading their borders, because you remember, Kemet was actually a pretty successful imperial government. I mean, they kept up just like you see in the United States of America. So everybody said, well, hey, listen, they're going to hell in the handbasket. Let's just take over back our land. So there's a whole lot of insurrections. People were going crazy. And what happened was, at the time, there was a general by the name of Hordenheb who said, what's going on? What are we doing? We're losing people. Our men are getting killed here. And he said, to hell with it. He took over and created martial law in Mempatah, while Amun-Ra was in Amana going, Kumbaya and all that. So what he did was he started going up to the north to make sure that the Syrians and all the people who were attacking all of their holdings and quell that. And he sent his second general, named Ramasu, who became Ramesses, to chase Akhenaten and destroy Amana. And that's where you get the Bible story of Ramesses chasing Moses, because remember, his father was Ahmose, and Moses meant father of his children. Ahmose, or Mose to the Kemites, meant father of the children. And they blended that together, and they kicked out Akhenaten and made him a king in Astentia in the Sinai. And they chased him through this bog, because during the time there was a part in the Sinai where there was a flood, and it turned it into a marshland. Not the great ocean that they were parting in the sea with Charlton Heston and Moses, all that bull nonsense. And all the rest of that crap that you see about the 10 plagues of Egypt and all that. The 10 plagues came as a result of the destruction of, or the eruption of the Thelema volcano that dumped ash all over Kemet. Okay, so then they took that and made that into a story. So all of the crap that you see is history. It's twistery, I call it. When the white man writes it, it's twistery. He's twisting the history. And his story is a twistery. Ours is my story. IMYSTORY, and you just interchange the AEIOU, which is the what do you call that again? the vowels. You just interchange the vowels because vowels are interchangeable. So if you want to deal with my story, you're dealing with the mystery.
Right.
Okay, so the mystery system is my story system.
Good. And I know we're gonna. I want to like turn this into maybe a mini series because I know the computer I have is not gonna let me do that much time. So I know we'll have at least 40 minutes each time. So I got about a good 10 more minutes left on it. But I want to get into one more aspect of Egypt and metaphysics, and a lot of our people go in on let's say ETs or extraterrestrials. It's saying that the pyramids tie into that. Is there any significance to extraterrestrials and the pyramids?
Well, I would not call them extraterrestrials. I would call them interterrestrials, the ones that's under the earth. Okay, the ones that's outside of the dome that comes through the dome by way of portals. From one place, like islands within water, because all is water.
Right.
All is water. And you have to understand that we condense into it. The creators condense. They have higher creators. I do trust in that factor, that there are entities much more advanced than we are that actually allow for us to have this body experience, because they themselves have done it and they've probably transcended the need to have this particular experience. So they graduate to levels that they actually are conducting a school for experience, because that's all it is about.
Right.
Everything about you is to just have experiences, to experience, so that becomes the feedback mechanism to actually allow the creator to know itself.
Right.
Okay, so when you're speaking about the extraterrestrials, I deal with hyper celestials. I don't deal with extraterrestrials. If there are extraterrestrials, I believe they're just terrestrials that live a few layers or miles beneath the earth, just like they're living down in the Levantine trench, or just that trench down in the Pacific. They're going to start seeing entities that are actually living down underneath there in the earth. But the hyper celestials is what I call are those entities that have the ability to open gates, dimensional gates, and to come in and out of those gates, because it's nothing more than a bending of light. And to just close that out, if you were to look at some of the artwork on the walls of ancient Kemet, you will see that they'll show you like dozens of men, and possibly a few dozens of men walking in one direction on a straight line that's going horizontal, and then all of a sudden at a 90-degree angle you see men going up what looks like a plane. That is the secret to actually folding space and going into a whole other reality. Wow. The 90-degree arc that you can make a light change and shift to. And so ancient Kemites knew how to get out of here, so did the ancient Olmecs, which were actually the Tamoancan people. They had ways that they could shift out. And that's what's happening now. Every now and then you see these extraterrestrials, they seem to blink in and blink out. Well, what they're doing is folding space. And they're shifting at the 90-degree angle, because what you're looking at are actually the way light intersects with light to give you the prism of the reality that you're in. But in the prism, if you look at the prism, it has 7 different layers.
Right.
Well, that's 7 different octaves of sound being actually presenced or given its physical reality through light. So sound and light becomes the masculine and feminine, another form of the representation of the yin and yang.
Right, because it could bring us back, pardon me, to the rainbow, or the bow meaning to bend. The bow means to bend.
And that's why you say we know we're under a dome. Why? Because a rainbow wouldn't be able to bend like that if we weren't.
Right.
Okay.
Now that is a good thing. And I'm gonna take this last question until the next show, because I know we're gonna have more than one show. But this one, pardon me, this one right here gets a lot of us, and it's a dinner topic, a lunch topic, and a lot of people are starting to speak on it now. Flat Earth. Is the Earth flat, or is the Earth round?
No. See, the Earth itself is on a plane. It's not on a flat Earth. It's flatted when it's on a plane, it's operating on a plane. It's not operating in a ball or an orb or by itself. There is an extension to the plane, and the book that I was first introduced to back in 1985, around 86, around the late 80s, was World Beyond, what is the name of that darn thing? Worlds Beyond the Poles. That's the one.
Oh, I've heard of that, Doc.
Yes, World Beyond the Pole. Now, I wasn't ready for it back in the days, and this man was actually given the thumbs up by the Vatican when he submitted his materials to state that we are not on a limited space. We are on an infinite plane. And when I came to the maturity at the time to come into understanding his work late by this young woman reintroducing me through Flat Earth to something that was introduced to me when I didn't understand what I was looking at, it came to me that since infinity, and when we're dealing with the principle of infinity, that is the masculine, because it's unreachable. You can't know it. It's just something without your ability to construct. But in your condensed state, you can understand the mathematical progression of infinity. So we have used pi as that particular model. We know that infinity is the feminine to eternity. And that when the eternal creates, it creates like unto itself another aspect of itself, the feminine aspect of itself, which is the potential for all things to manifest under that particular umbrella called eternity. And that's what we, in our limited format, in our limited thinking, the only way that we can know in eternity is through us infinitely mapping the plane of our existence. And that shows how the Most High has condensed itself into this space for us to study, examine, grow, to participate, to experience, all of that.
Perfect. So, pardon me, that was a great one, Doc, and I know we got to do this again, and we're coming up on a short time to cut off, but I'm looking forward to another show, definitely, and we're going to continue the great question and answer Q&A, because it's a beautiful thing, beautiful energy from you, brother.
Indeed. But I guess I'll just give you my number to call, 800-847-1291, 800-847-1291. And I know, beloved, you're going to be actually putting up a lot of our information. Our Cash App is SUNNU7. That's S as in science, U, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, U, and the number 7. And, you know, whatever it is as far as the different, what we call our services, if you want to deal with all of our services, I'll send them to you. You can upgrade them, update them, and it's, you know, we do our consultations, we do the vaccination exemptions. There's a lot of different things, our school, the university, and so just, you know that we're not just kind of just rambling off.
Right.
We deal with practical metaphysics,
Right.
application. Application metaphysics.
And please do it. I tell the family, please look into the brother Doc. He's been more than on the scene for over 30 years, and please look into him. I know I have. So I want to thank you again, Doc, for coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to doing another show. And as well, I will be getting with you even more off the air. So I want to just thank you again, brother, because you have perfect, beautiful energy, and I thank you for coming on.
Most welcome. Give thanks.
And here we go. We have the most distinguished brother, Dr. Phil Valentine L. Thank you, brother. Until next time. Peace. Yeah, that was the good Doc. Hey, got a lot of good energy and a lot of good information out there, family. It was an honor to have him on, and you know, please check him out. We're going to be doing another show here. We're going to be doing other guests coming back onto the show. I know it's been a minute since I did a part in the Interjection. Had to take care of a few things. I've been in class myself. dealing with my certifications. Of course, you all know I'm an OSHA instructor, and I deal with safety and construction. So I've been dealing with a lot of that. So please check the brother out. He's going to be on the show again and again. We're looking for more guests to come on again. So be on the lookout for that. We got some good brothers coming up and sisters coming up on the show again. So also check out, Moorish American Top 10 Hip Hop Music Countdown. That's always going to be up. We're going to do one here shortly soon with some new videos and of course some oldie but goodie ones. So again, I want to thank Dr. Phil Valentine L for coming on the show, and I want to thank you all for joining in. And again, I like to bring all type of good information to the family, and you take it and you distinguish what you need out of it. And like I say, thank you for joining me. This is Partner Interjection, your host Supreme L. Until next time, family, stay safe. Peace.